Zeppelin kneels in the snow and proposes to Rebecca. A sparkling diamond ring awaits its wearer. Holding the ring, the blonde man asks Rebecca to become his most beautiful masterpiece. Touched by the gesture, the blonde woman tearfully calls out his name. She promises that even if born again, she would still choose to be his wife. Zeppelin gazes at her portrait, satisfied that she has become a collected work of art. White-gloved hands fasten a delicate black choker. Zeppelin stands behind his wife, admiring how the jewelry enhances her beauty. He presents more choices, noting how everything seems to suit her perfectly. Rebecca asks for permission to attend a party, prompting a questioning look from her husband. She expresses a deep desire to reconnect with friends she hasn't seen since their marriage. Zeppelin sternly refuses, reminding her she may only attend events he personally approves of. She protests his strict conditions and the fact that he never allows her to socialize. He silences her mid-sentence and coldly orders the maid to bring the next item. The grand palace becomes a birdcage where she is kept isolated from the world. Rebecca sits alone, watching through the glass as summer leaves turn to winter snow. A physician informs the pale woman that she has become pregnant. She repeats the word in shock. A grim realization suddenly strikes her. She fears her child will be trapped in a display case just like her. Determined to protect her baby, Rebecca flees into the dark forest at night. In her new life, she works as a humble maid to earn an honest living. She observes how her hands have grown rough and her beauty has begun to fade. Despite the physical toll, a bright smile shows she has found true happiness. Tragedy strikes just as her happiness reaches its peak. Rebecca wakes in terror as a match is struck, revealing Zeppelin standing over her. He tells her he knows she is awake as she trembles in fear. Zeppelin mocks her for being so naive to think he wouldn't find her. He announces with a chilling smile that their masterpiece has finally been born. Rebecca panics and screams for Psyche as her husband approaches the child's crib. She grabs his coat and desperately demands to know where he has taken Psyche. Zeppelin reassures her he wouldn't harm his own bloodline, but refuses to leave art in such a shabby place. He chokes her, lamenting that his finest piece has already begun to wither. She bites his hand to escape and runs away, her feet pounding as she calls for Psyche. Rebecca rushes through the house, searching every room for her missing daughter. A woman with lavender hair stands at the top of the stairs holding the child. Shocked and betrayed, Rebecca asks Alicia why she is the one holding Psyche. Heavier footsteps sound as a shadow falls over the floor. Zeppelin concludes that it was a betrayal as Rebecca cries out in disbelief at Alicia's actions. Alicia claims she had no choice while Rebecca demands that her child be handed over immediately. As she lunges forward, Zeppelin brutally seizes her by the hair to stop her. He throws her to the ground and dismissively claims she has finally lost her mind. He coldly informs her he has found a replacement and must leave for a funeral. Rebecca begs him to return her daughter, but he tells her to get out of his sight. She bites her lip in fury, her eyes filled with intense hatred for the man.
A dull thud sounds as he strikes her down again.
Zeppelin is outraged that she dared to leave a physical mark on his body. He claims he had intended to spare her life out of respect for their history. He tells her she brought this fate upon herself and slams the door shut. Rebecca bangs on the locked door as Zeppelin's voice calls her his finest doll. He coldly declares that it is finally time for her to be discarded, as he has already taken everything he wanted from her. Rebecca watches in terror as a fierce fire begins to consume the room. Coughing amidst the smoke, the blonde woman realizes that she was never truly able to escape from Zeppelin's control. As her strength fades, she desperately wishes for just one more chance to return and change her fate. Her eyes snap open to the rhythmic sound of her own blinking. A concerned servant startles the blonde woman by asking if she is feeling all right. The maid observes that her mistress seems to be carrying a particularly heavy burden today. Rebecca is shocked to see Alicia, wondering how she could be present when she thought the woman had died long ago. A dark memory flashes of a different woman being killed by Zeppelin in the past. Wondering if she has reached heaven, Rebecca listens as the servant encourages her to endure just this one day. The blonde woman is left confused, questioning the significance of this specific day. A heavy door creaks open to reveal a blinding white light. Scenes of a grand, flower-filled courtyard suggest a lavish celebration is underway. Rebecca stands at the threshold, her expression one of complete disbelief. She gazes out at the beautiful decorations with a hollow, haunted look. A grim realization strikes her that this situation is a personal hell rather than paradise. Musicians perform a solemn piece for the gathered nobility. Rhythmic clapping echoes throughout the grand venue. Amidst the applause, Rebecca remains frozen in a state of shock. Zeppelin watches the proceedings with a smug and triumphant expression. He stands proudly alongside a new bride with light-colored hair. Narration describes the event as a deceptively beautiful and romantic wedding ceremony. Rebecca watches the spectacle with a somber and distant expression. She bitterly reflects on the fact that this is actually her husband's second wedding. Under the blessing of a goddess, the officiant declares the couple to be husband and wife. Zeppelin glances back with a cold and possessive gaze. Rebecca stares back, her spirit nearly broken by the unfolding betrayal. He commands her to smile, and seeing that familiar, cruel look on his face, the reality of her situation becomes clear. She recalls how he once controlled her every move, even while praising her beauty and presenting her with jewelry. In the present, the blonde woman clenches her hands in a silent fit of rage. She forces herself to smile through the pain and resentment. Rebecca remembers the first time she encountered Alicia, finding her in a serious state on her daily walking path. She had personally cared for the wounded woman, bringing her into her home to recover. When the stranger finally awoke, her beauty was so captivating it could steal anyone's heart. Rebecca felt a deep connection, seeing something of herself in the lovely woman she had saved. Having lost touch with her friends after her marriage, she welcomed the gentle Alicia as a companion and maid. Thanks to Alicia's presence, the blonde woman finally felt like she was no longer lonely. However, the narration notes that this peaceful period was destined to be shattered in less than a year. During a birthday meal for Alicia, a sudden pained gasp from the husband interrupts the celebration. Alicia looks away with a troubled expression, admitting that she suddenly has no appetite. Rebecca's heart sinks as she realizes the woman she trusted is carrying her husband's child, and she confronts him in a fury. Looking into a mirror, Zeppelin mocks his wife's naivety, suggesting it was inevitable that something would happen between them. He approaches her coldly, claiming that neither he nor Alicia are to blame for what occurred. Zeppelin shifts the responsibility onto Rebecca, blaming her for leaving such a beautiful woman in his care. Shaking with anger, the blonde woman demands to know what he intends to do with Alicia. He dismissively of the current situation hasn't actually turned out for the best. Zeppelin points out that they have been childless for over 10 years while celebrating his new union. A formal announcement confirms that Alicia has officially become Zeppelin's second wife. Rebecca reflects on the time when she foolishly believed that everything was her own fault. Holding a drink at the wedding party, she looks on with a hardened expression, knowing the truth now. A fated dance marks the beginning. A carriage speeds through the night as a sudden sharp gasp sounds when a scream echoes. A soft, quick swish sounds as Rebecca realizes she has truly returned to her tragic past. A mother's heart yearns for Psyche. Memories of motherhood haunt the Countess. Rebecca recalls the brief, happy life she shared with her child before everything fell apart. A child's laughter echoes through time. Rebecca remembers the crushing weight of their final moments together as her world began to crumble. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Rebecca bites her lip in a moment of silent, burning fury. Rebecca vows that her child will never suffer at Zeppelin's hands as she looks back at her captivity. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Rebecca wonders why she was given this second chance at life. A sudden, quick swish sounds as Rebecca stares into the distance with a new, dark resolve. A vow of ruin for Zeppelin. A mystery man watches the night. A sudden, rhythmic, sharp tap sounds as the Emperor walks through his quiet domain.
A sudden, rhythmic, sharp tap sounds as the Emperor watches a carriage depart in the moonlight.
Intense gaze fixed on the distance. He speaks Rebecca's name with wonder. A soft, quick meow sounds as a sudden presence breaks the Emperor's quiet contemplation. Leo the cat looks on steadily. A sudden, sharp puff sounds as Leo jumps onto his shoulder to ask if he has developed an interest in the Countess. The Emperor admits he initially thought the woman was like a corpse, entirely devoid of any human emotion. He reflects on the crying face she made, realizing he never knew she was capable of such vulnerability. Leo suggests that her expression was actually one of defiance rather than simple sadness. The Emperor scolds his companion for daring to read his mind without permission once again. A sudden sharp puff sounds as Leo claims he only heard the thoughts because they were being broadcast so loudly. The Emperor summons his aide, Kroa, who immediately acknowledges his master's presence. The Emperor asks what Zeppelin was doing in his domain, prompting Kroa to explain that news travels slowly during war. Kroa reveals that Count Devonshire took a second wife today during a ceremony held at the Valeria coast. A sudden, rhythmic, sharp top sounds as the Emperor becomes furious that a wedding was held in his most cherished territory. He demands that the intruders be cast out immediately and banned from ever stepping foot in the territory again. A soft, quick swish sounds as Kroa promises to correct the situation before the deadline tomorrow. A soft, quick swish sounds as Leo cleans himself after the tension of the command fades. She arrives at the grand estate. A sudden, rhythmic, sharp tap sounds as Rebecca steps back into the manor she once called home, searching for memories of her life. Rebecca reflects on how Zeppelin restricted her to being a mere decoration, never entrusting her with any actual duties. She stops before a familiar sight. The Hall of Light Conservatory stands as a grand monument to the Devonshire family's vast wealth. Zeppelin's pride lies within these walls. Rebecca recalls how the family obsessed over their art collection, even building climate-controlled halls to preserve their priceless treasures. Rebecca contemplates the satisfaction she would feel if she were to destroy Zeppelin's most prized possession. She imagines the look on his face, but realizes that the tight security makes destruction currently impossible. Armed sentries bar the bloodshed. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Rebecca grips her dress, frustrated by her current lack of power and influence. Rebecca remembers how her family's bankruptcy forced them to rely entirely on the mercy of the Devonshire house. A sudden, rhythmic, sharp top sounds as Rebecca laments her past inability to save Alicia from her fate. A soft, quick swish sounds as a parasol is opened to shield Rebecca from the bright morning sun. The maid cautions her to be careful, noting that the sun feels particularly strong and could easily burn her skin. Rebecca smiles and thanks Alicia. Their footsteps echo as they walk. Rebecca reflects on how Alicia was the only person in the Count's household who truly cared for her, remembering a rare moment of happiness at a village festival from her past life. A sharp crack sounds as Zeppelin brandishes a whip, demanding to know why she dared to sneak out. Rebecca desperately begs Zeppelin for mercy, but she can only watch in horror as Alicia is beaten to death, leaving her with a debt she can never repay. Returning to the present, the blonde woman asks Alicia if there is anything she wishes for. Alicia smiles warmly and admits her only wish is to spend peaceful days like this with her lady. Rebecca encourages her to be honest, offering jewels or a raise. The maid stops and addresses her lady. Alicia takes her lady's hand. With a sincere expression, the maid declares that she only wishes to remain by her lady's side forever. Touched by the devotion, Rebecca says her name. Rebecca is convinced that Alicia is the only person she can truly rely on as they head back inside. The sound of heels clicking follows them. They reach the third floor, where Zeppelin's private chambers and study are located. Zeppelin gazes out from the manor's highest point, fueled by a desire to keep everyone beneath him. No one was permitted to enter that floor, including Rebecca herself. His study remained locked at all times. She is certain that the secrets of the house are hidden behind those doors. Rebecca contemplates if his weakness is hidden inside that room. A soft click sounds from her shoes. A guard informs her that the area is off limits, prompting Rebecca to wonder how he noticed her so quickly. They walk back down the hall together. Back in the safety of the bedroom, Alicia calls out to her lady. The maid asks if she wants to see the study, noting that she saw her mistress looking at the stairs earlier. Alicia suggests they sneak away just like they did for the festival. Rebecca expresses concern that the maid might be punished for such an act. Alicia reassures her that the Count is away on his honeymoon for a week and security is currently loose. She explains that only Hans is guarding the floor and offers to lure him away while Rebecca enters the study. The maid winks and tells her mistress to leave it to her. Every heist needs a freckled mastermind. Rebecca gazes at her with deep appreciation. A light tap sounds as Rebecca enters the darkened study alone, holding a single candle. She reflects on how she never once set foot in this room during her past life. Determined, she begins her search for anything that could serve as Zeppelin's weakness. A drawer slides open with a quiet creak. She finds a stack of documents and wonders what they contain. She notices the names of several familiar noble houses. Her movement stops in shock. She realizes one of the documents contains her own family's name. The records reveal how Zeppelin had been systematically destroying her family's land and businesses for years before he even proposed. She understands now that her family would never have collapsed so quickly on its own. Rebecca discovers sworn statements from her friends promising never to see her again, realizing Zeppelin held their weaknesses over them.
She remembers how Zeppelin mocked her father for begging for money while claiming he only tolerated her because she was obedient.
A memory flashes of him telling her that her friends were tired of her and that he was all she needed. She realizes that every word he ever said was a calculated lie. The blonde woman is overwhelmed by the fact that even people unrelated to her suffered because of his obsession with binding her. A scream of pure agony and betrayal escapes her lips. She grips the desk in a fit of rage, calling her husband a bastard. A sudden bang echoes through the room. Zeppelin stands in the doorway and demands to know what is happening. Zeppelin enters his study, asking his wife what she is doing there. Rebecca is filled with dread as she looks at the man who ruined her life. She confronts him directly, demanding to know what he has done to her. Zeppelin ignores her anger, casually warning her about the danger of handling the papers. He dismisses her discoveries as insignificant, but Rebecca accuses him of destroying her entire life. The Count maintains a smug smile, claiming all his cruelty was motivated by love for her. He insults her former companions and insists that her family's ruin was a necessary step for them. He pulls her into an unwanted embrace, reminding her of the help he once gave her struggling father. Rebecca struggles to get free, realizing that every act of kindness was a calculated trap. Flashbacks reveal how Zeppelin orchestrated her family's financial ruin by hiring a scammer to lure her father. The Obelia family was systematically crushed by debt until they had no way to escape his control. Rebecca acknowledges her father's naivete, but realizes her husband was the true monster behind the scheme. Zeppelin turns cold, warning her to stay in line if she wants Alicia to live. Rebecca is horrified to find that he is using her only friend as a pawn to keep her obedient. She clenches her hand in silent fury, forced to accept his demands for now. Zeppelin patronizingly promises to forgive her rebellion just this once. The crushing weight of the truth causes Rebecca to fall gravely ill for several days. Alicia is the first face she sees upon waking, her expression full of concern. Rebecca wonders why the woman who betrayed her in the past is still by her side. The maid expresses her deep relief and worry for her lady's well-being. The blonde woman reflects on her past life, remembering how she was once unable to hate Alicia. She recalls how the maid's gentle smiles were merely a mask for a greedy heart. Alicia had worked from within to isolate Rebecca and cozy up to the Count. The betrayal was total. Alicia even helped her escape just so she could take over as the lady of the house. Rebecca realizes the maid's only true goal was to steal her position as the Count's first wife. A heavy, unspoken tension fills the room as the two women sit together. Alicia finally breaks the silence, asking if her mistress hates her for what has happened. Rebecca forces a polite response while her mind burns with the memory of the maid's betrayal. Alicia notes the coldness in Rebecca's voice and mentions the Count taking a second wife. The maid plays the victim, claiming she was powerless to refuse the Count's advances. Rebecca shuts down the act, reminding Alicia that she was given a way out. She recalls a past offer to give Alicia enough money to live independently and far away. Alicia had rejected the offer, insisting on making her own decisions about her life and child. Rebecca tells her to live with the consequences of that choice and take responsibility for it. The lavender-haired woman is left speechless and uncomfortable, ending the conversation. Rebecca realizes that open hostility serves no purpose while she is still trapped in the house. She decides to exploit the maid's greed to further her own plans. To maintain the facade, she offers Alicia a gift for her recent help. A tray of exquisite jewelry is presented, sparkling under the light. Rebecca tells the maid to choose any item she desires from the collection. Alicia's eyes widen as she greedily inspects the expensive jewels. The maid's hand reaches for a particularly striking blue ornament. Rebecca stops her, revealing that the specific piece is an heirloom given by Zeppelin and is not for her. Alicia's expression turns sour as she asks if she will ever receive such an heirloom. Rebecca smiles coldly, stating that heirlooms are a privilege reserved only for the true Countess. She inwardly commands the maid to remember her place in the social hierarchy. Rebecca's goal is to make Alicia desire a life and status she will never truly attain. Zeppelin appears at the door, questioning why Rebecca has been spending so much time with the maid. He inspects his wife like a prized possession, complaining that her skin has become rough and bothersome. He demands she take better care of herself for an upcoming victory banquet he is hosting. Alicia excitedly asks if a banquet is just another word for a party.
She gushes about her first royal event and asks Zeppelin what dress she should wear.
A sharp pft of laughter escapes Zeppelin as he dismisses her, stating she won't be attending. He reminds her that she is just a commoner and has no place at an imperial banquet. Zeppelin tells Rebecca to stay home and play with the jewels he provides instead. Rebecca asks for an heirloom, catching Zeppelin off guard while Alicia watches from behind. She clarifies she only intended for Alicia to pick a simple gift as thanks for nursing her. Zeppelin sighs that family heirlooms are a privilege reserved strictly for the first wife. Alicia protests her status, but Zeppelin firmly leads her away to speak privately. Rebecca stops them, noting she has one important question before they go. She asks why they returned early, realizing their honeymoon ended much sooner than in her past life. Alicia complains that Zeppelin sold their villa for paintings, prompting him to angrily kick her out as the door closes with a loud slam. Rebecca is visibly shaken by the mention of Duke Johannes. A subtle smirk plays on her lips as she realizes she can attend this banquet with joy. Her heels click on the floor as she enters the room wearing a stunning blue gown. Zeppelin is mesmerized, complimenting her beauty while Rebecca offers a polite thanks. He remarks that her current appearance reminds him of the day they first met at her 17th birthday. Memories from 17 years ago resurface as a younger Zeppelin walks through the winter snow. The young man sighs, finding the entire social gathering incredibly dull and uninteresting. A sudden burst of laughter catches his attention, drawing his eyes to the courtyard below. He watches as a group of girls play in the snow, unaware they are being observed. His gaze fixes on young Rebecca, who laughs radiantly amidst the falling snowflakes. Feeling a presence, she stops her playing and looks up toward the balcony. Their eyes meet for the first time, a moment frozen in the cold winter air. A gentle smile from the young girl causes his heart to skip a beat. He grips the railing with sudden resolve, deciding right then that he will marry her. He imagines the beautiful children they could share, feeling he has finally found a life's purpose. He views her as the perfect doll needed to complete the foundation of his personal kingdom. Back in the present, he reflects on how Rebecca turned out to be smarter and more stubborn than expected. He prides himself on the decades spent isolating her to ensure she would depend entirely on him. Bringing Alicia into the house was a calculated move to keep Rebecca focused on maintaining her own beauty. He believes she will be perfect as long as she remains obedient, offering his hand for the carriage. A smug grin crosses his face as he thinks about the child that will soon complete his world. The grand estate of the Johannes Grand Duchy stands tall under a clear sky. A white-gloved hand dismissively tosses a document onto a desk. The black-haired man, Duke Johannes, asks his subordinate if there are any actually useful stories to hear. His red-haired assistant explains that greedy storytellers have been flooding the manor lately. The assistant reminds him to change into formal attire for the upcoming victory banquet. The Duke laments his choice to go to war, while his subordinate reminds him he was the restless one. He scoffs at the easy victory, suspecting the Emperor fabricated the rebel threat entirely. The red-haired man warns him not to test the Emperor's patience any further. The Duke stops petting his black cat, seemingly unfazed by the threat of trouble. He remains confident that the goddess's protection makes them untouchable, even by the crown. His eyes glow with a sinister golden light as he reflects on the true nature of their family curse. Legends speak of an ancient ancestor who received a divine revelation from the heavens. That ancestor led a rebellion that placed the current emperor on the throne, earning the title of Duke. Temples were built and cats were elevated to symbols of good luck under the goddess Defrea. However, the family's descendants grew arrogant and began committing sins within the goddess's sacred spaces. Enraged by their betrayal, the goddess decreed that their children would forever be bound to her own child. Every Johannes child was chained to the soul of a cat, forced to share its physical and emotional pain. The inheritance of the ducal family carries a grim price as the goddess's cat consumes the divine power of each heir, leading to their inevitable early deaths. Young Julian finds himself trapped within the same tragic cycle that claimed his predecessors. His father reminds him that he possesses the greatest divine power of any heir in their long history. Julian is pressured to produce more heirs to sustain the sacred beast, but he refuses to subject innocent women to such a cruel fate. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as his father grips his shoulder, warning him that the curse is inescapable. A moment of heavy silence as Julian processes the weight of his unavoidable destiny. His mother tearfully begs Julian never to fall in love, knowing the pain it will cause. Standing before his mother's grave, Julian is introduced to a new woman who is meant to replace her. A sudden, rhythmic, sharp tap sounds as the adult Julian walks through the palace, dismissing the pressure to marry immediately as absurd. He remains steadfast in his refusal to surrender to the wretched fate designed for him. Julian realizes that if he fails to produce an heir, the burden of the curse will fall upon Lily's innocent child. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Julian clenches his fist, determined to find a way to break the cycle. He vows that the generational curse will finally end with him, no matter the cost. The scene shifts to a grand, brightly lit ballroom filled with high society guests.
A sudden, rhythmic, sharp tap sounds as Rebecca and Zeppelin make their entrance into the crowded gala.
Rebecca scans the room, wondering if the person she is searching for has arrived yet.
Her eyes dart through the crowd, looking for a specific face among the nobility.
Julian and Rebecca lock eyes across the ballroom, acknowledging one another's presence. The Emperor greets Julian, commending him for his exceptional performance in the recent war. Julian offers a polite, formal response to the praise from his sovereign. The Emperor notes that this must be Julian's first time meeting the woman standing beside him. Princess Catherine is introduced, her elegant appearance catching the attention of the surrounding guests. Julian inwardly mocks the Emperor's transparent attempts to manipulate the situation for his own benefit. History shows the Empire of Rotandus has become dangerously entangled with the authority of the Church. Julian sees through the Emperor's scheme to use the Blessed Duke to reclaim imperial authority from the temple. Julian reflects on his carefully crafted reputation as a Casanova with depraved tastes. Despite the scandals, the Emperor remains determined to marry Catherine off to Julian. Julian maintains a calm, skeptical expression while considering the political implications of the proposal. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Julian accepts the Emperor's invitation to share the first dance with Catherine.
Julian leads Princess Catherine to the center of the dance floor as the music begins.
The Emperor watches the pair closely with a calculating, satisfied smirk. Julian reasons that a marriage to a princess would provide enough protection to keep the temple at bay. The two begin their dance, becoming the center of attention for the entire ballroom. While dancing, Julian is haunted by the memory of his mother's warning against love. Rebecca watches the spectacle from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. The grand dance continues as the rest of the nobility follows their lead.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Zeppelin reaches out to grab Rebecca's attention.
Zeppelin pulls her close, demanding that she look at him and show everyone she belongs to him. Rebecca apologizes, claiming she felt dizzy, while Zeppelin insists she conduct herself properly in public. She offers a compliant smile, hiding her true thoughts from her overbearing companion. Zeppelin instructs her to stay put while he mingles, leaving her alone in a corner of the room. Rebecca realizes that being ignored by him provides her with the perfect opportunity to act. Julian takes a moment to himself, letting out a weary sigh while holding a glass of wine. He notes the unusual absence of any cats in the ballroom this evening. He senses someone following him and remarks on the persistence of his unknown pursuer. Rebecca's voice warns him that she knows Leo is the only true cat that shares his soul. A waiter navigates through the party, unaware of the secret conversation unfolding nearby. Julian glances back and demands to know the identity of the person speaking to him. Rebecca tells him that she intends to be completely blunt about her intentions. She shocks him by revealing that she knows exactly how to break the curse that haunts his family. An incredulous voice questions the existence of a curse within a blessed house. Julian reveals he knows the secret of the soul-bound cat and the search for storytellers. He grows suspicious, wondering if the Emperor or Latranus sent her with such secrets. He is stunned to realize she knows he is actually untouched despite his reputation. She explains his purity is natural for a man who never wished to leave an heir. Rebecca asks what he wants in exchange for the opportunity she is offering. The sparkling hem of her blue gown catches the eye. Julian looks completely blindsided by her bold and direct approach. She demands he ask her to dance publicly in front of the Emperor. He watches her walk away, left speechless by her sudden demands. Rebecca turns back with a radiant and knowing smile. Julian's intense gaze follows her as she maneuvers through the room. She looks stunning and confident as her plan begins to unfold. Zeppelin approaches, apologizing for the delay caused by Duke Latranus' pestering. The Count's eyes flare with immediate and sharp hostility. He calls Julian insolent for staring at another man's wife so openly. Julian mocks the Count, claiming his presence is so faint it went unnoticed. Zeppelin fumes with hatred, thinking of Julian as a complete bastard. A flashback shows a young Julian cruelly telling a young Zeppelin to get lost.
Zeppelin recalls how much he despised the Duke's supreme and arrogant air.
He admits Julian has an eye for beauty, but remains possessive. He pulls Rebecca away, claiming she is his greatest masterpiece. Zeppelin believes someone like Julian could never lay a claim to her. High society ladies gossip about Rebecca's beauty and the Count's controlling nature.
A rhythmic click-clack signals a grand and important arrival.
The red-haired emperor enters the ballroom wearing his full royal regalia. Zeppelin looks over his shoulder, sensing the arrival of the sovereign. Julian asks the Count if he finally has anything more to say. A confident and smug grin plays across the Duke's lips. Julian declares his business is with Rebecca and reaches for her hand. He takes her hand as Zeppelin watches on in stunned silence. Soft murmurs ripple through the crowd at the sight of the confrontation. Rebecca reflects on Julian's composure, concluding he is certainly no ordinary man. Zeppelin desperately tells Rebecca to refuse the Duke's request immediately. The Emperor laughs as he approaches, commenting on the Count's excessive clinginess. He tells Zeppelin that being so overprotective does not look good. The sovereign insists that Rebecca be allowed to dance with the Duke. Guests whisper about the Count's tight leash while Zeppelin seethes with anger. Zeppelin begrudgingly yields, allowing only a single dance for the pair. Julian ignores the Count entirely, addressing his request specifically to the lady. Rebecca turns toward him, ready to engage in their public display. A sharp nod from the Count signals his final, reluctant permission. Julian leads her onto the floor as the crowd watches intently. He places a respectful and charming kiss upon her gloved hand. While they begin to dance, Julian asks for details about her deal. Rebecca shocks him by stating her clear intention to file for divorce. She looks him in the eye and asks him to marry her. She warns that the temple will soon pressure him to take a bride. A soft swish sounds as they spin, and Julian asks how she knew.
Rebecca smiles, clarifying that she isn't asking for him to fall in love.
Rebecca and Julian dance gracefully together in the ballroom. Julian looks into her eyes and asks if that is truly her only desire. As they move, Rebecca clarifies that she requires only one specific thing from him. The pair spins elegantly across the dance floor. Rebecca looks calm and resolute while being held by the Duke. Julian appears visibly surprised by her bold request. Rebecca asks for the power to completely bring down the House of Devonshire. They lean close to one another during a dance maneuver. Julian asks why he should believe her, but she asserts that he will have to. She notes he must believe her if he wishes to rescue his sister from the curse. Julian is stunned that she even knows about his sister Lily. He searches her eyes and concludes that she does not seem to be lying. Rebecca explains he doesn't need to answer now, but should send Leo to the estate once he decides. She smiles radiantly, telling him she will be waiting for his reply.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Zeppelin grabs her arm, demanding she come with him.
Julian watches the couple depart with a calm and knowing expression. Zeppelin aggressively leads her toward the carriage, declaring they are going home immediately. Inside the carriage, Rebecca quietly acknowledges his command with a simple, understood. Zeppelin rages at her for flirting in another man's arms, permitting she will pay for tonight's disgrace. Julian watches the Count's carriage depart from the estate gates. The Duke stands alone in the moonlight, looking toward the exit. Zeppelin warns the Duke not to covet another's property, but Julian argues she is not an object.
A sharp scowl crosses the Count's face as he calls Julian an insolent brat.
Julian asks if Zeppelin wants to be treated like an old man, mocking his age before calling him Uncle Count.
Two black cats hiss and growl aggressively at the blonde man.
Julian calms the cats, noting that causing a scene would only end up harming them. Zeppelin looks momentarily taken aback by the Duke's reaction. The Count points a finger, ordering Julian to never approach Rebecca again, as she is his possession. Julian sneezes at the cat hair as Zeppelin walks away into the night.
The red-haired assistant runs toward Julian, asking what his grace is doing out there.
Julian turns his head to address his subordinate.
Julian announces his intention to marry, shocking his assistant, then clarifies that the bride is already married. A carriage pulls up to the grand manor in the pouring rain. Rebecca stands inside by a window, watching the raindrops fall. Rebecca notes that Alice is unusually quiet and asks if she is curious about the early return. Alice the maid asks why the lady came back early and if something happened. A subtle and knowing smirk plays on Rebecca's lips. She explains that she danced because the Emperor personally commanded her to do so. Alice gushes about the Duke being a wonderful man and wishes she could have seen them. Rebecca's expression turns cold and somber as the maid looks on in concern. A sudden loud shout of Rebecca's name echoes through the room. Rebecca stands and notes that her husband is finally home.
asking if they are ready. A sudden, loud bang sounds as Zeppelin bursts through the doors in a rage. Zeppelin tells the kneeling Rebecca that she clearly knows she has done something wrong. He warns that her awareness won't make it as if the event never happened. He seethes over the humiliation he endured, gripping a whip with intense anger. Zeppelin looms over a cowering woman, shouting that she must take responsibility. A sharp crack sounds as he lashes out, yelling about her failure to obey.
Sharp cracks ring out repeatedly as he screams about responsibility and failing his expectations.
Rebecca begs for mercy and promises Zeppelin she will never look at another man again. Rebecca begs Zeppelin to stop and admits her mistake, but he coldly smirks and retorts that she should have yielded from the very start. Zeppelin kneels before his wife, holding her chin as he mocks how her beauty attracts pests that constantly swarm her. He demands she refuse any man who approaches her in the future, addressing her as his lovely wife with a chillingly possessive grin.
Declaring that Rebecca has been defiled, Zeppelin announces he will go to Alicia's room instead while ordering the servants to heal Alice and bathe the lady.
A sudden, quiet pause hangs in the air as Zeppelin departs, leaving Rebecca alone in the dimly lit room. Left to her own devices, Rebecca wipes away her tears with a somber and hollow expression as she tries to regain her composure. She approaches the injured Alice, who is kneeling and bleeding from her back, and softly asks if the maid is in a lot of pain. Alice smiles weakly through her suffering, asserting that her own pain doesn't matter as long as her lady remains safe. Rebecca pulls the maid into a tight and comforting embrace, her heart heavy as she whispers Alice's name in the silence. While they hug, Rebecca's expression shifts as she suddenly asks why Alice was smiling during the ordeal, catching the maid completely off guard. A flashback recalls the terrifying moment when Zeppelin raised his whip over the cowering and defenseless Alice. In the memory, Alice wore a sinister and knowing smirk even as the lash descended upon her, a detail Rebecca didn't miss. Rebecca's hand grips tightly as she pulls back, her gaze turning cold and intense while she demands the maid answer for her behavior. Narration explains that the Count's uncharacteristic haste into the study was the moment Rebecca first began to harbor deep suspicions of Alice. She wondered what could make such a composed man act so desperately, concluding that the only variable was her own recent actions. A transition reveals the chilling realization that only one specific person could have known the truth about her secret plans. Rebecca suddenly grips Alice by the throat, causing the maid to gasp and struggle for breath as the confrontation turns violent. Narration recalls how Zeppelin would always immediately remove any servant Rebecca grew attached to, ensuring she remained isolated and without allies. Alice was the only maid who remained by her side, serving Rebecca since her very first day at the Count's estate. Rebecca reflects on how her judgment was clouded by the maid's staged sacrifice, realizing Alice was always one of Zeppelin's people. She looks down at the terrified woman, wondering what the true purpose was behind such a long and elaborate deception. Releasing her grip, Rebecca commands the trembling maid to run away and never show her face again.
A sharp, painful cough escapes Alice as she looks up at her mistress in utter shock at the sudden order to leave.
Rebecca warns that trust is gone and that the maid knows exactly what the Count will do to her for failing her mission. She declares her intention to inform Zeppelin to fire the maid the next morning, her voice icy and devoid of mercy. Rebecca emphasizes the urgency, telling Alice to flinch and flee before the dawn breaks and the Count discovers her failure. Alice's hand clenches in frustration as she realizes her role as a spy has been completely uncovered by the woman she underestimated. The maid's persona drops instantly as she mocks Rebecca for being naive and lacking the courage to take real revenge on a traitor. Rebecca retorts that knowing the why won't change anything and tells the maid to just hurry and run while she still can. Alice smiles condescendingly, remarking that Rebecca has always been too soft and predictable for her own good. She rants about Rebecca's lack of gratitude, claiming she should be thankful the Count took her in from her insignificant background. Alice argues that after everything she's seen, she cannot understand Rebecca's dissatisfaction when the Count clearly adores her. The maid lists the jewels and dresses Rebecca receives, admitting her own deep envy and her desire to take her lady's place. Rebecca delivers a final, chilling warning, telling Alice to watch her words or face a sudden and violent death. Alice laughs at the threat, confident that her mistress is too naive and kind-hearted to ever actually commit a murder. A sudden, loud bang rings out as Alicia strikes Alice with a wooden bucket, silencing her mocking tirade with a brutal blow.
Alice lies motionless amidst the wreckage of the broken bucket, while Rebecca and Alicia stand over the fallen spy.
Alicia calmly addresses Rebecca, informing her that the bathwater is ready and she will personally handle the situation. The dark-haired maid grabs the unconscious Alice by the hair, declaring she will take care of the vermin once and for all. Alicia bows respectfully to her mistress before dragging the body out of the room, leaving the area silent once again.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as the door closes and Rebecca is left standing alone in the wake of the violence. A heavy, weary sound marks her collapse to the floor as the lady's spirit finally breaks under the weight of her isolation.
Rebecca reflects on the chance she tried to give Alice, concluding that everything has finally come to an end.
She realizes that Alicia must also be one of Zeppelin's loyal people, further cementing her precarious and watched position.
A bitter laugh escapes her as she realizes she is still worried about Alicia's fate despite the maid's status as a spy. Rebecca grips her gown tightly, the reality of her total betrayal and loneliness becoming an unbearable burden to carry. Tears stream down her face as she begins to acknowledge the depth of her own helplessness in this house. Rebecca huddles on the floor in the dark room, weeping as she realizes she is now completely and utterly alone. Narration notes that the maid who prepared the bath never returned as the long and silent night continued to wear on. Rebecca remains slumped among the debris of the broken bucket, her world having crumbled into a state of silent despair. Rebecca gazes out at the night. Her hand grips the cold ledge. Rebecca hears a mysterious voice promising her that she will eventually become unbreakable. The voice predicts that the lady will soon grow hard enough to shatter rock. Rebecca resolves that she can do anything now as she has nothing left to lose. Rain falls heavily over the estate. A body lies still in rain. Canna drags the injured Alicia through the pouring rain toward the manor greenhouse. The injured maid groans in pain. Alicia groans in agony as she looks up and asks the black-haired woman for her identity. Alicia desperately asks for Rebecca's location, but Kana roughly grips her hair and complains about the annoyance. She is thrown before a statue. A sharp gasp escapes Alicia as she recognizes her surroundings and realizes where she has been brought. The terrified maid begs to be spared from the basement and offers anything in return, while Zeppelin and Kana look on with cold indifference. A sharp, sickening blow sounds out. The maid lies unconscious on floor.
Zeppelin praises Kana's utility and promises her any reward she desires as long as she never oversteps her bounds, to which she obediently agrees.
Zeppelin notes that Octavio provided a decent servant this time and orders Kana to replace Alicia and report every detail of Rebecca's life to him. Kana bows and confirms her understanding. Zeppelin gestures with a chilling smirk as he orders Kana to have the unconscious woman taken away immediately. A man hauls the body away. Zeppelin departs with his subordinate as the sound of their footsteps fades, leaving Kana alone in the greenhouse. Rebecca stirs and wakes in bed. Rebecca is startled as a calm and unfamiliar voice asks if she is finally awake. Kana introduces herself as the new maid who will be serving the lady starting from today. Rebecca notes the speed of Alicia's replacement and realizes that Kana never existed among the servants in her past life. Rebecca stares warily at her maid. Rebecca wonders if future has changed. Kana begins to brush Rebecca's hair. Rebecca notes Kana's flawless skills and reflects on how much more competent she appears compared to the clumsy Alicia. Rebecca wonders about Alicia's fate and questions if Kana has already informed Zeppelin that Alicia's true identity as a spy was discovered. Alicia being dead would be troublesome.
Kana remarks that the Count remains unaware of last night's details and begins to mention his current views regarding Rebecca.
Rebecca suddenly seizes Kana's wrist. Rebecca demands to know if the maid was ordered to win her favor and declares that such attempts are a total waste of time. Rebecca warns Kana to run away immediately while she still can if she values her life after seeing what happened to Alicia. Kana remains silent and expressionless.
Kana bows low before her mistress.
Kana reaches into her dress and pulls out a small cloth, claiming it is an item she has cherished more than her own life. A sharp gasp escapes Rebecca as she recognizes the item Kana is holding, wondering if it truly could be the object from her memories. Kana confirms the lady's suspicions, asserting that the object is absolute proof that Rebecca once saved her life. A flashback begins in warm spring. A man drags a young girl through the streets, ordering her to follow quietly as she recalls how cold that day felt for her soul. I cannot read that text due to its sensitive and disturbing nature.
The father attempts to negotiate with a madam, arguing that his daughter is pretty like her mother despite her thin frame.
Kana recalls the moment she crossed the threshold of the brothel and saw the depravity of the life that awaited her. Kana remembers the terrifying realization that if she entered that building, she would never be able to leave again.
The young girl suddenly breaks free and runs away while her father shouts for her to stop and return to him.
Wait, where are we going? The footsteps, they're getting closer. We have to hurry, faster! Kana flees through the crowded streets. The carriage driver screams at the girl to get out of the way as his horses charge forward. A loud "Kya" rings out as the young girl is thrown violently to the cobblestone street. The child rubs her eyes while trembling. Kana looks up in shock as a gentle voice asks if she has been injured. Rebecca reaches out to the girl. The child stares in silent awe. The girl flinches as her father's voice bellows through the street, demanding to know where she is hiding. Rebecca lifts the girl into her arms as she notices the child's terror at the shouting man. The child begs her mistress to stop because of the dress, but Rebecca smiles and says it is just fabric. Rebecca carries the girl toward her carriage while ordering the driver to take them to the relief shelter. The carriage speeds away from time. Rebecca asks the girl if the man who is screaming is someone she knows personally. Kana clutches her dress in shame. Rebecca notices blood on Kana's hand. Rebecca pulls an item from her back, noting it was originally intended as a gift for another person.
A soft shh sounds as Rebecca wraps the girl's bloodied hand in the decorative cloth.
Rebecca holds the child's hands and suggests that the cloth will serve as a sufficient temporary solution. The young girl begins to weep.
Rebecca explains that only kind people live at the shelter and promises that the man from earlier will never approach her again.
Kana reflects on how that warm touch became a memory she could never bring herself to forget over the years. Kana has searched for her mistress. Kana tearfully declares that she has never once forgotten her lady throughout her long absence. The maid weeps with pure relief.
Kana insists that she does not mind if the lady has no memory of their first meeting.
Kana vows to do anything necessary to ensure the lady's happiness, prompting a look of deep suspicion from Rebecca. Narration recalls how Zeppelin once mocked Rebecca's craftsmanship, calling the very cloth Kana now holds absolute trash. The rejected gift falls to floor. Kana kneels before her mistress, begging to be used as a tool even if she is not yet trusted. The maid offers to murder Zeppelin or mutilate a spy if that is what the lady requires of her. Rebecca looks at the kneeling woman and wonders if such a radical claim of loyalty could actually be true. Rebecca recalls the cruel words of previous spies and questions if Kana is truly prepared to be her ally. Rebecca stands up and tells Kana that for now, she must remain a servant who belongs to Zeppelin. Kana tries to protest her loyalty, but Rebecca commands her to become a person of Zeppelin in the Count's eyes. Rebecca orders the maid to gain the Count's trust so she can act as the lady's secret eyes and ears. Rebecca warns that Kana must first provide a sign of her loyalty before she is fully accepted. Rebecca demands that Kana bring her a lock of Zeppelin's hair, noting that a messy cut would be even better. Kana accepts the dangerous order immediately. Rebecca tells the maid not to betray her.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds at the window, drawing the attention of both the mistress and the maid.
A black cat watches from the ledge. Rebecca stares at the cat's arrival. Rebecca welcomes Leo into the room and asks the cat if he has been waiting outside for very long. The cat jumps down and stretches. Rebecca watches the animal with curiosity. A soft click sounds as the small chest on the cat's collar is opened to reveal a hidden scroll. Octavio's note appears, requesting a meeting so the two of them can finally speak in person. Rebecca smirks as she reads the message. Rebecca prepares a response, instructing the recipient to meet her at the relief house while wearing their shabbiest clothes. Octavio smiles as he reads the letter, finding the lady's specific and whimsical demands to be quite amusing. Octavio pats the black cat's head and praises him for successfully completing his mission. Octavio watches Leo with slight concern. He asks if the cat is sulking. Octavio explains the importance of the delivery. Octavio reflects on her familiar face. A blurry vision of a girl appears. He dismisses his feelings as impossible. Octavio wonders if the curse can break. Leo listens silently to his master. The cat dismisses any personal concerns. Leo abruptly departs for a reveal. Octavio sighs at his companion's unpredictability. He recalls her elegance from before. Rebecca's bold marriage proposal is remembered. Octavio finds her offer strangely captivating. He considers the pressure for an heir. He examines a letter from the temple. He reflects on the Count's disrespect. Octavio decides Zeppelin deserves his fate. He remembers Leo's report from yesterday. A glimpse of domestic cruelty surfaces. He recalls her fragile, light frame. Octavio suspects she was being starved. He imagines her future as Duchess. Daylight spills through the manor window. A man splashes water on himself. He refreshes for the morning. Bare feet tread across the floor.
A figure pauses before the mirror.
A panicked scream echoes through the hall. Guards rush toward the Count's recess. Zeppelin trembles as he feels his scalp.
He realizes his hair has been shorn.
The guards struggled to remain professional. Zeppelin roars to find the culprit.
He stares in horror at the mirror.
He orders a hunt for the guards. Rebecca notices the small box nearby.
She opens the lid with curiosity. Rebecca smiles at Kana's proof.
The maid returns to her mistress. Rebecca acknowledges efficiency and loyalty.
Rebecca requests her most modest attire.
She looks forward to her secret meeting.
Dinner is served in a tense atmosphere. Zeppelin cuts his food with irritation.
Alicia requests another serving of food.
Zeppelin cruelly criticizes her recent rape. He threatens her with immediate expulsion. Zeppelin contrasts Alicia with Rebecca's grace. Rebecca calmly defends the pregnant woman.
Rebecca places her hand over the Count's and gently suggests Alicia to eat a bit more. Rebecca expresses her lingering guilt over the fact that they have not been able to conceive a child.
She looks at Zeppelin and explains that she wants Alicia's child to grow up strong for that reason. Zeppelin signals the maid with a snap of his fingers and orders her to bring another half a plate of food.
Alicia glares in silent frustration, resenting that only Rebecca's words influence the Count, before she suddenly declares she will not eat.
Zeppelin stands up abruptly and shouts Alicia's name in a fit of irritation.
Rebecca reaches out to the Count and tells him not to get so worked up over the situation.
She calmly reminds him that pregnancy often makes a woman more sensitive than usual. Rebecca notices his uneven hair and suggests that he should cut it short altogether. She smiles warmly and insists that a shorter style would make him look far more masculine.
Zeppelin blushes at the compliment and agrees to the change since she insists so much.
While Zeppelin considers that a new look might actually suit him, Rebecca watches him with a cold, calculating gaze.
Rebecca calls out to Zeppelin to get his attention once more. She asks for his permission to leave the manor briefly for an outing later that day.
Zeppelin stops mid-drink and asks her exactly where she plans on going. He narrows his eyes and repeats the question with a more demanding tone. Rebecca explains that she intends to visit the charity house she used to frequent regularly.
Zeppelin looks her over and asks if those drab, plain clothes are the reason for her choice of destination.
He smirks and grants his permission, noting it is better to look than a beggar than to attract the wrong kind of attention. Rebecca thanks him with a smile, while Zeppelin secretly suspects she only acts unusual when she wants something.
Alicia watches the exchange with venomous eyes, mentally labeling Rebecca a fox-like wench.
The scene shifts to the Duke's quarters, where Johannes orders his retainer to dress as plainly as possible. Croa holds up a robe and argues that they must maintain the Duke's honor instead of obeying a woman's threats so easily.
Johannes warns him to watch his tongue, reminding him that the woman is to be his duchess.
Crow huffs and suggests the Duke should at least tidy his hair before leaving.
Johannes ignores the comment and walks away, while Croa remains behind, looking frustrated. Croa calls out after him, asking if the Countess was truly as beautiful as people say.
He questions if her beauty was enough to make the Duke fall for such a nonsensical arrangement.
Johannes brushes his hair back and playfully mentions the significant age gap between himself and the lady.
Chibi versions of the two bicker as Croa insists he is just a loyal retainer worried about a naive duke and a suspicious woman.
Johannes notes that entering a contract marriage with a dubious woman is incessant than trusting rumors from storytellers.
He looks back with a serious expression and declares he would do anything to break his damned curse.
Croa pauses and asks what they will do if it turns out the Countess has been lying to them.
Johannes closes his eyes with a small smile and says he is willing to let himself be deceived for now. He touches the mirror and admits that while he doesn't fully trust her, she is his best hope to reach his goal.
He confidently asserts his status as Duke Johannes and tells his companion there is no need for so much worry. Johannes adds that he expects Croa to be busy searching for a way to break the curse while he plays along with the deception. A flashback reveals that even as a young boy, the Duke never truly seemed like a child to those around him.
Dark narration notes that he didn't even shed a single tear during his own mother's funeral.
Croa recalls how the young boy looked like a fragile shard of glass that could shatter at any moment. Standing in the rain at the cemetery, the young Johannes tells Croa that he is now his only ally.
As they grip each other's hands, Croa recalls that was the day he resolved to stay by the boy's side forever.
Now in the library, Croa reflects on his deep desire to protect the boy who lost his family and couldn't cry. He wonders how a complete stranger could know things about the curse that he himself never discovered.
The two return to their bickering, with Johannes calling Croa irritating while Croa insists he is the Duke's keen mind.
Crow throws on a dark cloak and claims he is only going along to ensure Lady Rebecca's safety.
He silently vows to uncover the lady's true intentions once and for all. Laughter and playful shouts ring out as children run through the courtyard of a sunlit stone building. Rebecca arrives at the charity house with Kana and asks the residents if they have all been faring well.
A red-haired woman grasps Rebecca's hands and thanks her for the support that has kept them well during her absence.
Kana whispers to her mistress that the guest has arrived. Rebecca walks away to greet her mysterious visitor. Johannes notes that Zeppelin's spy, Robert, has been following him. Rebecca clears her throat to announce her presence. Kana leads the cloaked duke through the manor grounds.
Rebecca follows behind as the group heads inside.
Rebecca wonders why the duke is following her so easily.
A sharp click sounds as the doors are opened. Rebecca apologizes to her guests for the long wait.
The lady is suddenly frozen by a shocking sight.
Rebecca gasps in disbelief upon seeing Croa standing there.
She reflects on how the charity house provided her refuge.
Rebecca recalls meeting Croa in her previous life there.
In the past, nobody believed Croa was a high-ranking butler. Only she realized he possessed deep secrets of the Duke.
Back then, Julian was bedridden while Croa searched for cures.
In his madness, he revealed the family's deepest secrets.
Croa would cough blood whenever he spoke of the curse.
Dying, he claimed to have finally discovered how to save them. He began to reveal the method for breaking the curse. Rebecca is overwhelmed by the weight of that memory. She was unable to help the Duke's house in that life. Rebecca decides to use that knowledge now to ensure survival.
Johannes asks if Rebecca and his companion know each other.
Johannes accuses Croa of leaking secrets, which he frantically denies.
Rebecca claims she merely thought Croa seemed like a fine butler.
Johannes watches her with a suspicious and heavy gaze.
Johannes orders Croa to leave so they can speak alone.
A quick tat sounds as the doors closed. Johannes suggests they finally discuss the details of the contract.
Rebecca formally introduces the terms of their proposed marriage contract.
The document details his investment and her promise to break the curse.
Understood. Please provide the text. Johannes mentions he has one question before they proceed.
He asks why she intends to destroy the county and Zeppelin. Rebecca tells him she will explain when the time is right. Johannes suspects the lady has no other hidden ulterior motives. Rebecca assures him he will not have to dirty his hands. She only requires his ducal title and his financial support.
Rebecca promises to return any investment to him twofold.
Johannes finds himself strangely willing to believe her absurd proposal.
He agrees to the deal but requests one specific amendment.
Johannes points to the third clause regarding other romantic relationships.
He demands she seek his consent before seeing other people. Rebecca wonders if he is actually showing concern for her.
She agrees to change the clause to make him comfortable.
Johannes vows to never be as unfaithful as his father was. Rebecca presents the newly amended contract for his final review. Johannes looks over the document and agrees to the terms. The Duke stands up as the deal is officially struck. Johannes stands confidently before Rebecca in her private study. Johannes burns the contract over a candle. Rebecca gasped at his shocking behavior. Johannes notes they have no reason for betrayal and suggests destroying the evidence is best. Johannes vows to uphold the contract while Rebecca warns against betrayal. Johannes smirks and asks if she will betray him. Rebecca vows to uphold the contract with her life. Johannes questions her next move against the powerful Count Devonshire, but Rebecca confirms she is well aware. Rebecca explains that the county's true strength is people, leaving Johannes puzzled by her answer. She lists the 4 pillars of the county as the estate managers, business vassals, information retainers, and protective knights. She identifies the key figures as hounds. Rebecca reveals the hounds obey Zeppelin only out of fear because he exploits their fatal weaknesses.
Johannes acknowledges the strategy but wonders how she intends to turn them.
Rebecca hints at an overlooked detail.
Rebecca asserts that these figures are humans and vows to liberate them by shattering the prison of their weaknesses.
Johannes asks how he can help. Rebecca plans to create a merchant guild and seeks a competent guildmaster.
Johannes agrees but questions how she will manage it from within the manor.
Johannes accepts his role as financier. Johannes offers her his unlimited funds. Rebecca asks for one more thing. She asks about the Devil's Claw. The narration describes Devil's Claw as a poisonous plant that became incredibly valuable as a rare purple dye. Johannes notes the plant's rarity, but Rebecca requests a laboratory to cultivate it using a secret expert.
Johannes suspects her true intentions.
Rebecca smiles and mentions their marriage. She recalls the plant was once a secret panacea discovered by a botanist in her past life. Rebecca notes the raw leaves purge toxins and cure diseases despite causing temporary fever.
Rebecca recalls Zeppelin forcing her to eat the leaves in his past quest for youth.
Rebecca reflects on Zeppelin's singular motive. She explains that Zeppelin only values her appearance and would discard her if it vanished. Johannes is stunned by her calmness. Rebecca notes everyone carries hidden burdens.
Johannes is left completely speechless. He desires to understand her better.
Johannes seals their partnership as allies.
Rebecca looks forward to working together.
The manor stands silent at sunset. Zeppelin notes her late return home.
Zeppelin shows off his new haircut.
Rebecca compliments his perfect new look.
Zeppelin says he was thinking while she was away.
He admits to neglecting her since Alicia's arrival and proposes they spend some alone time together.
A collage highlights Zeppelin's proposal to spend the day alone with Rebecca.
Zeppelin continues to emphasize his desire for private time.
He repeats his request for them to be alone.
Rebecca flinches in visible discomfort.
An oppressive and dark atmosphere suggests the toxicity of their dynamic.
Zeppelin commands her to change into better clothes and meet him in his room.
Rebecca prepares for their meeting.
Alicia gazes at Rebecca and tells her that she is ridiculously beautiful.
As Rebecca turns away, Alicia tells her to never mind her previous comment while Kana watches from behind.
The atmosphere shifts as a heavy door creaks open. Rebecca begins her ascent up the grand staircase, telling herself that everything is going to be okay. Gripping her dress tightly, she reflects on the fact that she has performed this specific act countless times before.
Alicia stands at the top of the stairs and asks if she is on her way to the Count's room.
Alicia offers a sweet smile and repeats that her sister is truly beautiful, while Rebecca silently notes that her plan is in motion.
Rebecca reaches the landing and thanks Alicia for the compliment as she continues her walk.
Alicia watches her leave with a sharp and calculating gaze.
Alicia catches up to remind Rebecca that her beauty is fleeting and that she is far younger, vowing to soon command all of the Count's attention.
Rebecca looks back with a calm, piercing eye and asks if that is truly the case.
As they stand on the staircase, Rebecca tells Alicia that she is free to have all of that attention if she wants it.
Rebecca turns her back on the younger woman and asks if she is aware of a certain truth.
Rebecca delivers a chilling warning, stating that Alicia will never be the first wife, and that any child she bears will forever be second, just like Alicia herself.
Alicia trembles with rage and grips her skirts, vowing that Rebecca will regret saying those words. Suddenly, Alicia lets out a piercing scream that echoes through the hallway.
Alicia yells for Rebecca to stop as maids rush into the corridor, creating a scene of staged desperation.
A dark, sinister smirk crosses Alicia's face as she prepares to take a drastic step. With a dramatic flourish, Alicia flings herself backward down the steep stone stairs.
Rebecca watches with a cold and satisfied expression as Alicia tumbles toward the landing.
Alicia hits the floor with a sickening, heavy thud. A loud crash rings out as the impact shakes the quiet hall.
Alicia lies crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, her shoes scattered as she groans in feigned or real agony.
Rebecca descends and looms over the fallen woman, whispering that she really should have been more careful.
Rebecca leans closer to a terrified Alicia and mocks her, stating that the secret in her belly is her only real asset. Distraught maids race down the hallway, frantically calling out for the madam.
Rebecca suddenly collapses and groans in pain, clutching her bloodied face as the servants arrive.
Zeppelin arrives at the scene and demands to know what has caused such a massive commotion.
Rushing to Rebecca's side, Zeppelin ignores Alicia and asks in horror what has happened to her face.
Zeppelin cradles Rebecca's face and threatens the staff, declaring that they are all dead if a single scratch remains on her.
Rebecca gazes up at him with a battered face and weakly insists that Alicia did nothing wrong. Begging for Alicia's forgiveness, Rebecca goes limp in Zeppelin's arms as he cries out her name in panic. Kana takes charge, telling the Count to carry her lady to her room and summon a doctor immediately, while Zeppelin frantically agrees. Kana carries the injured Rebecca away while Zeppelin watches them retreat with a look of intense worry. Alicia tries to call out to the Count from the floor, but Zeppelin looks back at her with eyes full of cold fury. Zeppelin turns on Alicia and asks how she dared to do something so reckless without knowing her place. Trembling and weeping, Alicia stammers that the whole thing was just an accident. Zeppelin coldly orders the guards to take Alicia away and confine her in the Hall of Light. Back in the safety of her room, Kana bandages Rebecca's wounds and asks if she truly had to go to such extremes. Rebecca smiles through her bandages and asserts that the pain is a very cheap price to pay for what she stands to gain.
Narrating the aftermath, Rebecca explains that her injuries allowed her to avoid Zeppelin's presence for 2 months, aided by her memories of the past.
She recalls how, in her previous life, Alicia fell the exact same way, and Rebecca had framed her out of blind jealousy.
Rebecca muses on the irony of Alicia attempting the same deceptive tactic in this new life.
Canna reports that the Count is furious and has placed many guards on Alicia, leaving only the spy Robert near Rebecca's quarters.
Rebecca looks satisfied and asks if the guest she requested has been contacted.
Canna confirms that she sent the message and that the guest agreed to arrive later that day. Rebecca asks if Zeppelin had any final thoughts, and Canna notes he actually encouraged the visits, worrying that Rebecca might suffer from psychological shock. Rebecca scoffs at the idea of him caring for her mental state just as the bedroom door is thrown open with a loud bang.
An older woman in a red gown rushes into the room demanding to know what has happened to her Connor.
Rebecca looks up with a soft smile and greets her mother. Rebecca's mother asks if Alicia pushed her, but Rebecca maintains it was an accident while she tried to save the girl.
The older woman worries that her daughter is far too kind for her own good.
Rebecca coldly points out that for someone so worried, her mother never once called. A sharp rustle sounds as she grips her skirts, admitting that while she knew her mother was powerless, she still feels deep resentment. Rebecca recalls finding records of the massive sum her family received as a condition for her marriage to the Count. A gentle hand strokes her hair in a memory of her wedding day. Her mother had warned her never to have the Count's child or get attached, fearing she would be tied down forever.
The older woman's expression shifts to one of deep, unsettling realization.
Rebecca looks back with a firm and unyielding gaze. Narration reflects that Rebecca had a foreboding feeling since the moment she first met Zeppelin. Flashbacks reveal Zeppelin's early demand for the marriage and Rebecca's initial refusal based on their disparate social standings. Her father's failed investments and impending bankruptcy are recalled as papers scatter in a sudden, sharp flurry. Zeppelin asks if she intends to oppose the marriage arrangement again this time. Facing complete financial ruin, the family found themselves unable to refuse the Count's offer. The pen creates a quick, rhythmic scratch as she signs the document, later regretting how her selfishness caused her to wither. Rebecca refuses to offer any further excuses for her past decisions. Her mother desperately suggests they run away together to live a simple life as farmers. A heavy silence hangs in the air as Rebecca considers the suggestion. Rebecca asks if her mother could truly abandon her luxury and if she could force such sacrifices on the rest of the family. The older woman looks away, her heart heavy with the weight of the girl's words. A golden-hued memory shows a young, happy Becky playing in the garden with her family. A single tear wells up and spills over in a moment of quiet, sharp grief. Canna steps into the light with a soft swish of her apron, offering a handkerchief to the weeping Rebecca. Her mother is startled by the maid's presence and asks how long she has been listening. Rebecca reassures her mother that Canna is completely loyal and under her command. Rebecca asserts that running away will not solve any of their problems. She plans to establish a firm foundation and leave on her own terms, inviting her mother to escape the Devonshire shadow with her. Rebecca declares with absolute certainty that she is going to get a divorce. The word leaves the older woman utterly speechless and shocked.
Rebecca adds that she intends to remarry Duke Johannes, leaving her mother in a state of total bewilderment.
She warns that this secret must remain between them and that her father must never find out. Observing her daughter's face, the mother realizes with a start that the girl is completely serious. The older woman asks what role she must play in this grand scheme.
Rebecca offers a small smile and asks if her mother would be interested in starting a business.
Moonlight streams into the quiet bedroom as the night deepens. Canna enters with a steady, rhythmic step and asks if her lady is feeling trapped. Rebecca admits that being confined to her bed feels stifling. She laments that she cannot walk and that Zeppelin would never allow her to go outside anyway. Canna's eyes sharpen as she hints at a possible alternative. With a sudden, swift whoosh of air, Canna sweeps Rebecca off her feet. Rebecca is visibly stunned by her maid's sudden and forceful action. Canna notes that the guards are not on patrol and confirms the coast is clear. They soar through the open window with a dramatic, sweeping whoosh. They land with a soft, quick thud on the manicured lawn below. Canna offers to serve as her lady's legs and asks where she would like to be taken. Rebecca looks at her maid with a mixture of surprise and growing admiration. Rebecca gestures toward the lilac garden as they prepare to move. The two women make their way through the lush, moonlit garden. Rebecca asks why the maid hasn't questioned her recent decisions.
Rebecca specifically wonders what Kana thinks about the conversation she had with her mother today.
Kana carries Lady Rebecca through the moonlit garden and expresses her unwavering belief in her lady.
Gazing with absolute loyalty, Kana vows to follow Rebecca to any end, even into hell itself.
Rebecca looks up in silent surprise.
The maid continues through the garden.
Kana suggests they pause for a moment of rest as they arrive at a garden bench.
Kana carefully lowers the injured Rebecca onto the wooden seat.
Kana suddenly tenses as she senses someone approaching through the dark. Kana alerts her lady to a presence just as a man in a dark cloak emerges from the shadows.
The man steps forward and offers a cold greeting, acknowledging Rebecca with a polite but distant address. Rebecca recognizes the newcomer as Robert Crowley, the spy mentioned by Kana earlier.
Rebecca remains seated and demands to know what business brings Robert to the garden at such an hour.
Robert claims he was simply enjoying a walk under the beautiful moon, but Rebecca accuses him of eavesdropping.
Robert mockingly praises Rebecca's loyalty for working so late, though she corrects him, stating she is only resting.
Looking at him with a piercing gaze, Rebecca tells Crowley that she is not easily fooled by his pretenses.
Robert admits he is fully aware that every servant in the manor is currently keeping a close watch on him.
Rebecca reassures him that she has no plans to scold him for merely doing his job, prompting him to ask what she wants.
Rebecca offers a small smile and suggests they enjoy the view together, admitting she has wanted to speak with him for some time.
Robert requests to be addressed by his first name, leading Rebecca to wonder if he harbors a hatred for his family name.
Rebecca muses sadly on the cruel nature of family blood bonds.
She notes the painful irony of acting as a hound to save one's family, while simultaneously loathing the name they share.
Robert demands to know exactly how much she has discovered, but Rebecca claims her knowledge is limited.
Rebecca reveals she knows of his heritage in the prestigious House of Kadirgo and that his family is currently suffering. She explains that his family is held captive in Zeppelin's clutches and prepares to reveal one final truth. With a confident and glowing expression, Rebecca declares that she intends to save him from his situation.
Rebecca recalls her past life, where Robert was brutally murdered by Zeppelin due to a false suspicion of love between them.
She remembers Robert's funeral, where his grieving family appeared to pay their final respects.
The mourning family members bore owl eye tattoos on their foreheads, the sacred mark of the Kadirgo faith.
Looking at Robert now, Rebecca realizes the scar on his forehead was intentionally made to hide that very same tattoo.
Memories reveal the history of the Kadirgo faith being oppressed by the dominant Tefria faith, forcing followers to hide their marks.
The owl eye symbol shifted from a sacred mark to a widely recognized omen of misfortune.
Robert scoffs at her claim and skeptically asks if a woman like her truly believes she can save him.
He mocks her perceived arrogance and capability.
Kana steps forward with a fierce glare and threatens to gouge Robert's eyes out if he continues to look at her lady so disrespectfully. Rebecca calms her maid and asks Kana to provide her with a pen and paper instead of engaging in the fight. A quick rhythmic scratch sounds as Rebecca begins to write something onto the small piece of paper. Rebecca holds out the finished note and tells Robert to take it.
Robert stares at the offered paper and asks what it contains.
She explains that the note provides a clue to his family's location and offers him the chance to protect them.
Robert laughs bitterly and asks why he should believe her, telling her not to imitate the Count's clumsy threats. Rebecca remains firm and insists that he take the information she has gathered. A soft, quick swish sounds as Robert finally reaches out and accepts the folded note. Robert asks why she would hand over such valuable information first, given the high risk that he might betray her.
Rebecca states she trusts him because he is a follower of the Kadirgo faith, and she knows they are bound by honor.
Robert touches his scar and reveals he tore the tattoo off himself years ago to leave his family, claiming he no longer believes.
Rebecca shakes her head and insists that her trust is based on more than just religious doctrine. She admits she is aware of the subtle ways he has helped her and declares that she doesn't care if he eventually betrays her. Robert looks at her with a stunned expression and asks if she is truly comfortable with such a risky arrangement. Robert asks if she can stand to see the Count live happily after his cruelty, and Rebecca vows she absolutely cannot.
Rebecca reaches out a hand and urges Robert to join her in taking total revenge to utterly destroy the Count.
She promises that together they will inflict the exact same pain upon Zeppelin that they were forced to endure.
Rebecca reflects on her long struggle.
Robert stands behind the smiling Zeppelin.
Robert once believed escape was impossible.
Rebecca's proposal of revenge makes Robert's heart race.
Robert stares with newfound intensity. A quick, soft swish sounds. With a sudden, soft smack, Robert kisses her hand. Robert Crowley formally swears his absolute loyalty to Lady Rebecca.
Rebecca instructs her new ally to begin by investigating the hounds.
Kana carries the Ladiora. Morning sun shines over the rammer. Rebecca praises Robert's findings, but notes that a crucial piece of information is still missing. Rebecca identifies the head maid, Grace Duncan, as her next target due to her deep knowledge of manor secrets. She notes Grace's unwavering family loyalty. Rebecca realizes Grace has no exploitable family ties. Despite her losses, Grace remains loyal. Rebecca resolves to win over Grace. Rebecca instructs Kana to destroy the secret documents now that she has memorized their contents. Kana obediently accepts the disposal orders. Rebecca learns that Zeppelin is away at a meeting and will not return until later that afternoon.
A soft tap sounds.
Rebecca decides to leave her room. Grace Duncan sternly reprimands the male servants for failing to do their jobs properly. She laments lack of pride. The head maid suddenly pauses. Grace wonders if Kana has left to visit the male servant quarters. Grace recalls Kana's usual chores. She dismisses her suspicion of Kana. Grace continues across the grounds. She glances at the bedroom window. A quick, sharp rustle sounds. Shimmering energy flows through the air.
Scene shifts to the garden calf.
Robert delivers a requested package. Rebecca examines her high-quality disguise. Rebecca happily boasts about the comfort of her boy's outfit while Robert watches with concern. Robert warns her to return as quickly as possible while she entrusts him to watch over Kana. Robert observes that her bedridden facade is successfully keeping her departure a secret. Robert promises to wait for her but reminds her to avoid detection by the manor staff. Rebecca offers a grateful smile. A rhythmic wooden clatter sounds. Rebecca enjoys her rare air of freedom. She marvels at the vast world. The wagon reaches its destination. Rebecca thinks
Adolf introduces himself and kindly offers her a cup of coffee at his shop in the future.
Rebecca waves goodbye to Adolf. A bold sign warns against interruption. A warning those who interfere. Final sign promises truly terrifying consequences. A rhythmic, sharp creaking sounds as she approaches the laboratory. Contemplating the threatening laboratory warning, narration introduces Eustace McQueen as a reclusive botanist famous for his research on rare flora.
Rebecca recalls that Zeppelin failed to recruit the man because he possessed no exploitable weaknesses.
A sudden, heavy bang sounds as she knocks and calls for Mr. McKen. A sudden, heavy bang sounds as she demands entry with frantic shouting.
A sudden, heavy bang sounds as Eustace opens the door and orders her to leave immediately.
A soft, quick cough sounds as smoke billows from the lap behind the defiant scientist. A soft, quick cough sounds as Rebecca formalizes her arrival with a new proposal.
Eustace dismisses her as another errand boy sent to exploit his research for noble profit.
He orders her to leave because he knows research offers are always manipulative traps in the end. Rebecca brings up a gift of fresh spring potatoes from Montpierre to grab his attention.
Eustace's attitude shifts instantly and he invites her inside to talk further.
Books and flora fill the workspace. Sunlight illuminates the botanical laboratory. A rhythmic, sharp munching sounds as Eustace enjoys the snack while criticizing modern breeding methods. Rebecca watches the scientist intently. She notes the specialized research materials scattered across his desk and realizes she arrived just in time.
Eustace settles by the fire and demands to hear her specific proposal.
He questions her knowledge of plants and wonders if she is a researcher herself.
Rebecca claims a modest interest and notes it is painful to see rare specimens neglected.
A quick, soft swish sounds as she points out environmental issues causing spots on his plants. Eustace suspects she is an expert sent specifically to make him rethink his stance. Rebecca denies any connection to the Count and offers an ambiguous hint about her true social rank. He reacts with visible frustration. Rebecca asks if he would prefer to hear what she can actually provide him. She offers to build him a grand greenhouse, but Eustace remains skeptical of such common promises. Rebecca specifies the location as Montpierre, leaving the botanist completely stunned by the scale of the offer. A triumphant smile for the offer. Monfils is identified as a vital port city with fertile soil and global logistics. A dream location for any researcher. High land prices make it inaccessible.
Rebecca promises him total research freedom and states she does not care what he studies.
Eustace remains suspicious of her generosity and asks what the inevitable catch will be.
A soft, quick cough sounds as Rebecca requests a cup of tea for her dry throat.
A quick, light tapping sounds as Eustace realizes his lack of manners and hurries to prepare tea. Rebecca examines the open research. A quick rhythmic fluttering sounds as she flips through the detailed research journals. She discovers a vital research secret.
The notes describe the purifying properties of devil's claw when introduced to poisoned water.
Rebecca realizes he has yet to solve a specific problem regarding the plant's medicinal use.
A quick, sharp thud sounds as Yustaf returns with a cup of cool herbal tea. Yustaf offers his sincere thanks. A sudden, messy splash sounds as he reacts with total shock to her knowledge of his experiments. He demands to know exactly how she discovered his need for test subjects.
Rebecca admits she read his open notes and asks for forgiveness for her curiosity.
She states her employer would find his theories very valuable in transitions to her simple conditions.
Rebecca proposes providing both test subjects and rare seeds to advance his research immediately.
Yustaf flatly refuses the offer, prompting Rebecca to ask for his specific reasoning.
He explains his fear that a high-ranking lord will steal his credit and abandon him.
Yustaf stands abruptly as Rebecca explains that her employer is of such high stature they have no interest in trivial honors, prompting him to shout that his panacea discovery will cause a massive stir once published.
Rebecca notes the stir it would cause, and Yustaf finds it amazing she discovered the value of his research.
A sudden, sharp pause sounds as Yustaf is moved that she truly understands the value of his theory.
Yustaf laments being called a madman and a lunatic by the academic world throughout his career.
A quick, rhythmic rustling sounds as Yustaf asks if her employer is involved in shady business, noting he can't be involved in anything illegal on his way to the top.
A soft, quick swish sounds as Rebecca offers a golden locket as her answer.
Yustaf recoils in shock, identifying the item as the crest of Duke Johannes. Yustaf immediately asks where he needs to sign the abriwet. Grand towers stand under the sun. Madame Obelia marvels at the palace's size and wonders if the rumors of Rebecca remarrying Duke Johannes are true. A man welcomes Madame Obelia to the estate. Julian Johannes introduces himself with a polite bow.
Sitting together, Julian asks his mother about her new business venture.
Madame Obelia admits her uncertainty about doing it well. Julian expresses his confidence in her, noting she has led the Obelia family all this time. He invites her to speak comfortably as she is now his mother too, which Madame Obelia finds very kind. Julian watches with a serious gaze. In a separate meeting, Julian offers to pay her debts, but Rebecca explains that a business is needed because paying debts is temporary and her father would just borrow again. Rebecca explains she must hand family leadership to her mother, requiring financial power to prevent family ruin.
She resolves to eliminate every factor Zeppelin could use as a threat before the divorce.
Rebecca identifies her family home and the Liberta Relief House as priorities. She vows to free her family. Quick, rhythmic rustling sounds as Julian asks for the specifics of the business proposal. Madame Obelia prepares to explain the details.
A soft, quick swish sounds as she presents the document and describes it as a rental salon.
She explains that while noblewomen host salons at home, they serve as faction venues. Madame Obelia describes the burdens of seasonal decoration and the lack of privacy due to gossiping servants. She proposes renting out salon spaces instead. She explains they will decorate rooms and gardens to client tastes, providing affordable spaces where private talk won't reach husbands' ears.
Julian questions if nobles who despise ready-made items will actually like the idea.
Julian asks for her certainty. Madame Obelia says she is sure because it is something she herself once wished she had. She notes not all nobles have time or money and mentions plans for a private salon for special guests. Madame Obelia begins the first steps. Julian smiles and realizes that, as Rebecca claimed, her mother is more than capable of leading the family. A soft, quick ticking sounds as Julian concludes their business and takes his leave. Madame Obelia stops him with one last question. A sudden, sharp flinch sounds as she asks what he liked about her daughter. A soft, quick cough sounds as Julian pauses to reflect on her question. He remembers Rebecca warning him to save his sister from a curse. A close look at her determination. Julian simply states that he likes her because she is cool, much to the woman's surprise. He explains that of all the women he has met, Rebecca had the coolest look in her eyes. Evening light falls over the manor. Rebecca returns in disguise and asks about Zeppelin's whereabouts.
Robert informs her the Count has not returned but urges her to stop being so reckless.
A soft, quick swish sounds as Rebecca explains the meeting was too important to delegate while Robert tells her to change quickly for dinner. Kana questions the purpose of the flowers she is holding. Robert explains they are insurance and urges her to eat. A rhythmic, heavy thudding sounds as they walk, grateful that dinner preparations are providing a distraction. Fabiola calls out for Robert as Rebecca continues to walk away in her maid disguise. The older woman demands to know the identity of the departing servant.
Fabiola repeats her call for Robert while watching the disguised girl leave. She pointedly asks about the identity of the child who just walked by.
A rhythmic, heavy thudding sounds as Rebecca maintains her steady pace away from the woman.
Robert quickly explains that the maid was simply on her way to deliver tea.
Fabiola watches the girl's retreat with a stern and suspicious expression.
Robert urges Rebecca to be quick so she doesn't keep the madam waiting. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Rebecca pauses for a moment on the stairs.
Fabiola gives an order to inform the madam of her intended visit the following day.
Rebecca recalls her mother-in-law's persistent and rude behavior from the past. Narration officially introduces Fabiola Devonshire to the unfolding story.
Text descriptions reveal her as a submissive wife who became a relentless tormentor to her daughter-in-law.
A sudden, sharp shattering sounds as a plate is dropped, a result of Fabiola's growing jealousy.
Fabiola casually observes that the cake has fallen onto the floor. She mockingly questions why Rebecca hasn't begun licking the ruined food off the ground.
Narration states that although Zeppelin banished her, Fabiola frequently returns to the mansion unannounced. In a shift to the present, Zeppelin asks if his wife's seating arrangement is comfortable.
Rebecca is seated in a grand wheelchair, noted as the only handmade one in the entire empire. Zeppelin encourages her to go for a walk, citing the doctor's advice against staying in bed. Rebecca agrees to the outing, though the chains securing her wheelchair rattle as they move.
A quick rhythmic thudding sounds as a servant arrives to announce Fabiola's presence. Zeppelin dismisses the news, suggesting they leave the woman to be dealt with by Alicia.
Rebecca insists on greeting her mother-in-law, claiming she must fulfill her wifely duties.
A rhythmic, sharp creaking sounds as Rebecca is wheeled toward the mansion's greenhouse.
She arrives to find Fabiola and Alicia having tea together in the garden.
A sudden, messy splash sounds as Fabiola pours out her tea, complaining that it isn't warm enough.
She demands that Alicia pour her another cup without delay.
Alicia complies with the request, her face tight with suppressed frustration. Fabiola immediately changes her complaint, claiming that the tea is now far too hot.
Alicia stands up, her patience finally reaching a breaking point.
A sudden, sharp slap sounds as Alicia strikes a servant in her mounting rage. Fabiola questions Alicia's actions, demanding to know what she is doing. Alicia shifts the blame to the servant, but Fabiola retorts with an insult about her low-born roots.
Alicia mocks Fabiola's noble status by pointing out that her own son refuses to greet her. Rebecca observes the scene, noting that her mother-in-law hasn't changed her ways at all.
She realizes Fabiola's abusive behavior has simply found a new target in Alicia.
A rhythmic, sharp creaking sounds as Rebecca approaches the table to greet Fabiola. Fabiola comments on Rebecca's injuries while Rebecca confirms she is not seriously wounded.
The older woman laughs off the previous shouting as a necessary lesson in manners.
Rebecca offers a pointed warning to Alicia, telling her to be very careful with Fabiola.
Alicia is stunned by the warning, confused as to why Rebecca would take her side.
The three women sit together in the greenhouse as tea is served among them.
Rebecca takes a sip of her tea, her expression calm and composed.
A sudden, sharp flinch sounds as Rebecca recognizes a familiar and suspicious taste. She pauses mid-sip, staring intently at the liquid inside her cup. A sudden, messy splash sounds as Alicia screams, having been scalded by hot tea.
Alicia accuses Rebecca of spilling the tea on purpose, but Rebecca feigns a frantic apology.
Rebecca tells her to seek immediate treatment, warning that burns can leave lasting scars. A quick, rhythmic thudding sounds as Alicia runs away in a panic, shouting for medicine.
Fabiola remains seated in silent contemplation. Alicia explains that events are proceeding exactly as expected. Fabiola questions the specific nature of those expectations.
Fabiola admits her resentment, while Alicia questions if she felt jealous.
In a flashback, Rebecca admits feeling inferior to another's beauty.
Fabiola reflects on Rebecca's silent endurance of her past torments. She wonders if Rebecca is finally displaying typical feminine anger.
Fabiola reassures Alicia that she is the only true countess.
Alicia admits that the older woman's words ease her heart. She inquires about the peaceful nature of the tea.
Fabiola offers more of her special custom-made blend.
A jar of dried tea leaves is shown in detail. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Rebecca places the jar down. She exhales a long, weary breath in the quiet room.
A reflection in the glass reveals a cat watching her.
Leo the cat meows as he sits by a window. Rebecca mentions Kana's advice while preparing milk for the cat.
She smiles warmly, hoping the feline guest enjoys the treat. Yulian's voice startles her as he suddenly calls her name. He stands silhouetted against a backdrop of luminous white flowers.
Narration notes that the story shifts back to a few hours earlier. Zeppelin holds a birthday card with a somber expression. He looks at a child's drawing of a family with cats. Robert asks if the gift should be returned once again.
Zeppelin dismisses the aide and orders him to leave at once.
A sudden, sharp creak sounds as the heavy door is closed.
A maid asks Robert for an update on how the meeting went.
They speculate on whether the Count is finally feeling guilt.
A soft, quick click sounds as a cat paw appears.
Julian offers the cat a drink from his wine bottle.
He notes the cat's refusal to drink anything but divine power. The cat calls him pathetic for his brooding birthday behavior.
Julian asks his soulmate cat to provide him with comfort.
Narration describes the tragedy of a child born solely for lineage. It depicts the cruelty of an immortal being watching descendants perish. Julian questions his own identity should his curse ever be lifted. A rhythmic, messy splash sounds as he pours more wine. Leo the cat watches him with a fixed, glowing gaze. A soft, quick thud sounds as the cat moves its paw. A soft, quick thud sounds as the cat jumps into the air.
The cat wishes the young man a happy birthday at least.
Returning to the present, Rebecca and Julian stand face to face. Rebecca questions his arrival and the cat's sudden disappearance. Julian is visibly startled to learn the cat was present. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as she covers his mouth.
Rebecca says shh while looking toward the hallway door.
Julian realizes the truth behind Leo the cat's previous actions. Rebecca demands an explanation, while Julian mocks her ignorance.
She questions if he is mocking her or simply drunk.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Julian sits on the bed. Julian acknowledges that he might seem a certain way in Rebecca's eyes.
Julian asks why she thinks he is looking at her strangely, while Rebecca explains that she has no interest in manners or formal honorifics.
Julian suggests they get comfortable since they are scheduled to be married soon.
Reluctantly agrees to drop the formalities between them.
Rebecca asks why Julian is smiling after she followed his suggestion. Julian finds her lack of a typical reaction interesting, while Rebecca demands to know how he entered and the current location of Leo the cat. Rebecca is stunned by the claim of body swapping and asks if he is actually the cat. Julian explains that they can exchange locations through a specialized form of spatial teleportation. Julian notes that she seems less shocked than before and asks if she is surprised by the revelation. Rebecca states that having died and returned to life makes teleportation seem like a minor occurrence. A moment of silent intensity as Julian stares at her. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Julian remarks that she seems to have lived an extra life. Rebecca urges him to teleport home for safety, but he admits that might be difficult to do right now. Julian explains that the teleportation consumed his power and he needs 3 hours to recover. Rebecca agrees to let him stay as long as he leaves immediately once his 3 hours are up. Rebecca asks if the guild business is progressing well, while Julian confirms he handled her requests. Julian complains about the difficulty of contacting her, while Rebecca asks if he is completely unable to go outside. Rebecca notes her current confinement while pretending to be sick. Julian becomes distressed upon seeing her injuries and demands to know why she didn't tell him.
Rebecca reveals she fell down the stairs on purpose to fake an injury, leaving Julian confused as to why she would go so far.
She explains that this deception is her only path to freedom. Julian observes that a broken doll must be left alone until it is mended. Julian asks what she needs to secure a divorce quickly, but Rebecca says she needs money and time for her powers to grow. Julian confidently promises to make the divorce happen within 2 months.
Rebecca looks at him with a soft, surprised expression.
A soft, quick swish sounds as Rebecca reaches out her hand. Rebecca gently pats Julian's head, much to his surprise. Julian stares at her, frozen by her unexpected gesture.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Julian catches her hand in his.
The two of them share a long, intimate look as blue flowers surround them. They remain close, their hands still joined together. Julian leans in closer, as if drawn toward her. Rebecca feels the weight of the moment as they stare into each other's eyes. Their faces are mere inches apart in the quiet room. A soft, quick swish sounds as someone moves away. A sudden, sharp puff sounds as a magical transformation occurs. Leo the cat suddenly appears on the bed, letting out a confused meow. The cat lets out an angry hiss as it looks at Rebecca. Rebecca scoops up the cat, realizing that the 3 hours have finally passed. The scene shifts back to Julian sitting alone on his bed. He lets out a long, weary breath in the dark room. He remembers the feeling of Rebecca's hand on his head. Rebecca is shown in the moonlight, her face flushed from the memory.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Julian falls back onto his bed.
He covers his eyes and curses under his breath. The scene shifts to an exterior view as Tanisha questions being used as a figurehead.
Robert explains she is the official head of the Merchant Guild while she argues about his prior promises.
Robert confirms the business is in her name, but Tanisha feels like a puppet for a mystery owner.
Tanisha threatens to reveal Robert's secret about the Duke's bald spot until he spits out his drink in shock.
Robert immediately agrees to talk to prevent her from revealing his secret.
Julian leans in and whispers his final instructions to Tanisha.
Zeppelin expresses concern for Rebecca's health as he prepares for his departure.
He instructs Alicia to manage things and report to the head maid while he is water.
Alicia politely wishes the Count a safe journey as she smiles back at him. Zeppelin smirks, satisfied that his influence over the household remains absolute.
Rebecca sits in her wheelchair, watching as the carriage departs from the estate.
She notes the suspicious timing of the Emperor's summons for Zeppelin. Julian remains confident in his promise to achieve their goals within 2 months.
Rebecca notes that the man is consistently reliable when it comes to keeping his word.
A maid quietly delivers a secret message to Rebecca after returning from the market. The note from the figurehead president confirms the Merchant Guild office is ready for a visit. Rebecca looks forward to finally meeting the person working behind the scenes.
Tanisha stands outside the new guild office, appearing nervous about her surroundings.
She takes a deep breath and steels her resolve before moving forward.
The bustling street highlights the vibrant location of their new business venture. A sudden, rhythmic, sharp tap sounds as a hand knocks on the heavy wooden door.
Tanisha enters the office after Rebecca calls for her to come inside.
Tanisha is shocked when the woman in the bonnet reveals herself as the true guildmaster.
Rebecca stands tall in her commoner's disguise, looking every bit the capable leader.
Rebecca insists that Tanisha take the seat of the president, as the position officially belongs to her.
Tanisha remains silent as she processes the scale of their secret partnership. A moment of quiet tension fills the room as the two women study one another. Rebecca explains that she chose Tanisha because she trusts Julian's judgment.
Tanisha recalls the intimidating rumors she heard about the woman who controls Duke Johannes.
Rebecca gets straight to the point, stating she only cares about money and keeping things brief.
She proposes a 60-40 profit split, prompting Tanisha to ask who receives the larger share.
Rebecca offers Tanisha the 60% since she will be handling all the difficult management work. Tanisha finds her new partner surprisingly reasonable despite her cold reputation.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Rebecca places a document down on the table.
Rebecca explains that Tanisha must use her identity to profit from the provided information.
Tanisha reads the list and notes that the items listed are currently considered worthless. Tanisha asks if Rebecca is psychic for knowing which prices are set to skyrocket.
Rebecca smiles as she remembers the luxury items that became popular in her previous life.
Rebecca instructs Tanisha to monopolize specific ladybugs before the market demand peaks. Sunlight fills the office as Rebecca asks for confirmation of their agreement. Tanisha determinedly promises to ensure that everything Rebecca requested becomes a reality.
Rebecca gathers her things and prepares to leave the office to maintain her cover.
The two share a playful moment as they solidify their mutual respect. Tanisha asks where she should direct her formal business reports.
Rebecca tells her to report everything to Julian so she can stay informed. Tanisha agrees to the reporting structure with a look of surprise.
Tanisha suspects there is much more to the relationship between Julian and Rebecca than business.
The Emperor and Julian sit together in a sunlit conservatory for a private meeting. The Emperor admits his surprise that Julian sought an audience without being asked.
Julian offers his late gratitude for the favors the Emperor granted him in the past. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Julian places his teacup on the saucer.
Julian announces his decision to abandon the temple and stand officially by the Emperor's side.
The Emperor asks what specific reason caused him to change his mind after so long.
Julian smiles and admits he was inspired by someone, while noting his long-term plan to destroy the temple. Julian questions his own identity and fears losing everything if his divine curse were to disappear.
Julian reflects on the irony of relying on wealth to find his long-sought freedom. Julian acknowledges that Rebecca's willingness to risk everything for escape profoundly impacted his worldview.
Julian maintains his secrets while pledging to prove his absolute loyalty to the Emperor.